And good evening, everyone. Second try. We did get DLive up and running, so that is good.
Yes, we did. It appears
we did get DLive up and running, so that. Sorry.
I think that might be my DLive.
That was mine.
Okay, cool. Right. Well, that was a bit of a scare for a moment, but it appears everything's working again.
Yeah. Our previous stream didn't continue, so we will have to get that link out.
Oh, hello, the Paradox. My sound quality won't be as good today. Most definitely. I'm streaming to a temporary location with a temporary mic. So apologies for that. Is there glitching?
It might be on my end again. I still haven't fixed that potential audio problem.
Okay.
Just been very busy, so.
It does happen. How is
just been
YouTube?
very busy. Sorry, I had complete tab.
It does happen sometimes. Well, how is everyone today? I think my DLive messages are coming through with a little bit of a delay.
Yeah,
yes.
there usually is.
Got snakes. Snakes tonight, that's what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Danger noodles. Snakes. But yeah, mostly they're kind of characterized as evil in the modern sort of canon anyway. They're very often seen as evil, as temptation, as generally bad, but certainly I don't think it was always that way from what I've researched. And I think the animosity towards snakes in the Bible might have had to do with when the Hebrews lived in Egypt. They encountered snake charmers there, and they encountered venomous snakes and died of their bites. And there's this imagery of after they begged Moses to save them, God asked him to put a snake on a pole so everyone bitten could look at it and live, which is obviously very reminiscent of the staff of Asclepius, which is called the Asclepian, which is that serpent entwined rod wielded by the Greek god Asclepius. And you will see it on barbers because they were associated with medicine in the medieval times. You'll see it on doctors' associations. And the serpent is associated in the Greek culture with the healing and the medicine, because there was a certain type of non-venomous snake that was used in healing rituals, and the Asclepian snakes, which I found interesting. They'd allow them to crawl around the temples like freely, and the cult of Asclepius got very popular, so there must have been a lot of these about all around Greece at one point. It's like whole temples full of snakes. Not good for anyone who's scared. I would think.
No. There is also the theory that part of why it's viewed as dangerous is due to religious reasons and competitions between different factions. In that many associate the
True.
snake with goddess religions, which were driven underground when the more patrilineal religions like Christianity and all of those came. So it's a bit hard to say why they have the reputation they have. And welcome to Gammon Sandwich and the Paradox and the Dancing Penguin over
Hello.
on DLive.
Good to see you all. Gammon Sandwich. Good name. I
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
The sound is
sounds better on YouTube.
yeah.
Okay.
DLive tends to be a bit glitchy, so that's just the way it is.
Yeah, that is how it is on DLive a lot of the time. We are sort of looking into, yeah, different factions, different platforms, stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of different platforms, I have to get Entropy going. Is it more of a hassle because I have to do it manually every time, as far as I know? But I am quite famously inept when it comes to technology, so that could be worse.
I think you and me both, Lynx. Yeah. DLive being ridiculous. Okay. Unfortunate.
Yeah, it might have been the DLive end why we had problems streaming there when we started, so
Could have been. But yeah, it's sort of the snakes, as I was saying, like they seem to be both negative and positive. I mean, certainly they have a resurrection element because of that skin shedding. Almost certainly that's viewed as symbolizing rejuvenation, resurrection. But it was quite interesting to hear that it maybe represents the dual nature of the work of the apothecary or physician who does deal with life and death and sickness and health. And drugs in some other situations are poisons. And they used some snake venoms as remedies. So the term pharmakon apparently means drug, medicine, and poison in ancient Greek. So that's the snake is very much associated with medicine and that ambiguity and that sort of in between, I guess, on the border between life and death, maybe, which is what medics are dealing in quite a lot of the time.
yeah, they are associated with what today is for many considered.
On the border between life and death, maybe.
Oops, sorry.
Which is what medics are dealing in.
I just had to mute Entropy.
Oops.
Oh.
Yeah, I couldn't hear anything on my end.
Yeah, I will be always right through. Yeah, so sorry about that. Hopefully that is the last glitch of today. Yeah. Yeah, what I was going to say is that the snakes in some European traditions are connected with the more chaotic forces, like Midgard serpent, with both a boundary. So in that sense, it's quite. It might actually be some sort of a stabilizing factor. You could argue, at least that's what I've been thinking off and on for years. And in the Slavic tradition, they are connected with the underworld. And the god of the underworld, of course, I don't remember the name off the top of my head, but he is the antagonist to the thunder god. And it's not viewed as a bad thing per se. It's more of a force maker. So I do think in many cases it's viewed as something evil, more in the dichotomy of good and evil. And that in many ways can be Christianity.
I think the Slavic god of the underworld is called Veles. Or he's earth, waters, livestock, underworld.
Mm-hmm.
He is the opponent of the thunder god Perun.
Yeah.
Imagined as a dragon. Pagan Slavs would have a belief in a chimeric being like a serpent that eats livestock and causes havoc. And his tree is the willow, apparently. So that's Veles, and he's very much associated with the snake. I mean, I've come across snakes and like wilderness gods, wild nature gods like Kanunos. Kanunos is often appearing with the ram-headed serpent, and that's a hybrid monster which turns up in images throughout Celtic Europe, both before and during the Roman period. And there's a ram-headed serpent like 3 times on the Gundestrup cauldron. I'm talking all over the place, like France, southern England, Bulgaria, and it's I think it's mostly depicted as a good thing, because Kanunos is not a bad god. It's evocative of plenty and fertility, and again dualistic. But there were early representations of snakes, which is what they think the zigzag lines were on Hallstatt period vessels, due to various reasons.
Yeah.
And I think they definitely crop up as representations of male fertility as well.
Yeah. I did come across a saint that apparently talked the Loch Ness monster out of eating people. I hadn't heard that before. So, but apparently,
know about that.
No, apparently, the Loch Ness monster ate people and livestock and everything, and then a guy came around and talked the monster out of doing that. So after that, the Loch Ness monster has kept away from people, and that's why I don't see it. And he became a saint. So. We have a question if we're doing a special show for next week and Mother's Day. I hadn't thought of that actually.
Mother's Day in the UK next week. I may have forgotten something.
I can never remember
I believe
those
I may
days.
have forgotten something. Google.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's quite confusing because it's different dates in different countries.
Well, in the United Kingdom, it's March.
I honestly don't
So
remember
Mother's
when it's
Day.
in Norway.
Mother's Day happened already in the United Kingdom. When is it?
Yeah,
Is this in America we're talking about? Is it Mother's Day in America next week?
I think I've seen quite a lot on Twitter about Mother's Day this weekend. So it might be today. I don't know.
Oh, it could be.
There's so many
But
days now, so I really don't follow up on them. I don't keep
yeah,
track.
not really sure when several other people celebrate it. I know Father's Day in the UK is like quite soon, I would say. Yeah, that's like 20th of June in the UK.
Yeah. Hey, White-tailing, good to see you.
Hello. Yes, it's nice to see you.
Yeah. I will be honest
Today.
yeah, I will be honest and say that I was a bit thrown off my game because
It does happen.
yeah, it does, and I definitely when it's something that I've never encountered before and that I'm not expecting, then I tend to um, get a bit more thrown off. You know, like yeah, that would be it. What? Ah, ah,
We stream no
with
movies. Okay. Okay, we're going to show. But I can't remember what platform he said he was going to instead.
yeah,
I have to find him though because I like Dave Martell's stuff.
yeah. It's probably Trovo or Odyssey. I have been trying to find out how to stream on Odyssey, but I haven't figured it out. Apparently, it's
You don't know?
some settings that are quite hidden,
Oh,
and it's too hidden for me to
wait.
find them.
White Healing doesn't know who Dave Martell is.
Oh,
Oh, you should have a little watch. He's quite good. He's a pagan. He interviews lots of people on the bog. He's interviewed Imperium Press. I'm sure he's had Survive the Jive on there. Very enthusiastic. Very passionate about the Reconstructionist paganism. Good info, good guests. Yeah, definitely listen to a bit of Dave Martell if you don't already know.
yeah. If you have his
Wait, Healing
links.
knows who he is but has his volume too low. Yeah, I gotta say, most people have heard of Dave Martell, haven't they?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, then that's settled. Yeah.
Hey, anyone who hasn't had a watch.
Yeah. Speaking
Nice.
of copyrights, I ordered a few books, and I was thinking I might narrate them. But two of them are from the Oxford University Press, and I actually need written permission to read them. So I think I'll just have to go to Gutenberg.org or
Gutenberg. I mean, I'm sure we could ask Arctos or Imperium Press. They've published a lot of stuff.
yeah,
They would probably let you read anything that they put out because they are very based.
yeah. It's those specific translations that have the restrictions, so it might be worth putting out some feelers to a few publishers. And
It may indeed. It
yeah,
may indeed. We shall see. We shall see. Well, it's getting on for half an hour into the usual runtime. I think like maybe we should have a story.
yeah. Where do we want to start today?
Good question. I've got a slightly longer one and a shorter one.
So have I.
And yes, your main one was about 20 minutes. Should we have that one first?
No, my main one is 13 minutes. My
13
raw
minutes.
take was 20 minutes, and I had so
Oh,
many
yeah,
mistakes I could cut out 7 minutes. I got quite a few things for a potential blooper video from that one. But
Lucas.
we could start with the water snake because that has a nice tie-in to the last week. So
okay.
that will be
Slightly related to birds, is it?
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, let's start off with the water snake.
Yeah. I'm sorry, my computer is very slow today, so should be coming along in a minute. Who had a daughter, and her daughter went down to the pond one day to bathe with the other girls. They all stripped off their shifts and went into the water. Then there came a snake out of the water and glided on to the daughter's shift. After a time, the girls all came out and began to put on their shifts, and the old woman's daughter wanted to put on hers, but there was a snake lying on it. She tried to drive him away, but there he stuck and would not move. Then the snake said, "If you'll marry me, I'll give you back your shift." Now, she wasn't at all inclined to marry him, but the other girl said, "As if it were possible for you to be married to him. Say you will." So she said, "Very well, I will." Then the snake glided off from the shift and went straight into the water. The girl dressed and went home, and as soon as she got there, she said to her mother, "Mummy, Mummy, thus and thus, a snake got upon my shift, and says he, 'Marry me, or I won't let you have your shift.' And I said, 'I will.'" "What nonsense you are talking, you little fool, as if one could marry a snake." And so they remained just as they were and forgot all about the matter. A week passed by, and one day they saw ever so many snakes, a huge troop of them, wiggling up to their cottage. "Oh, Mummy, save me," cried the girl. And her mother slammed the door and barred the entrance as quickly as possible. The snakes would have rushed in at the door, but the door was shut. They would have rushed into the passage, but the passage was closed. Then, in a moment, they rolled themselves into a ball, flung themselves at the window, mashed it to pieces, and glided in a body into the room. Out of the room and out of doors. Her mother accompanied her, crying like anything. They took the girl down to the pond and dived right into the water with her. And there they turned into men and women. The mother remained for some time on the dike, wailed a little, and then went home. 3 years went by. The girl lived down there and had 2 children, a son and a daughter. Now she often entreated her husband to let her go to see her mother. So at last, one day, he took her up to the surface of the water and brought her ashore. But she asked him before leaving him, "What am I to call out when I want you?" "Call out to me, 'Ossip, Ossip, come here,' and I will come," he replied. Then he dived under the water again, and she went to her mother's, carrying a little girl on one arm and leading her boy by the hand. Out came her mother to meet her. She was so delighted to see her. "Good day, mother," said the daughter. "Have you been doing well while you were living down there?" asked her mother. "Very well indeed, mother. My life there is better than yours here." They sat down for a bit and chatted. Her mother got dinner ready for her and she dined. "What's your husband's name?" asked the mother. "Ossip," she replied. "And how are you to get home?" "I shall go to the dike and call out, 'Ossip, Ossip, come here,' and he'll come." "Lie down, daughter, and rest a bit," said the mother. So the daughter lay down and went to sleep. The mother immediately took an axe and sharpened it, and went down to the dike with it. And when she came to the dike, she began calling out, "Ossip, Ossip, come here." No sooner had Ossip shown his head than the old woman lifted her axe and chopped it off, and the water in the pond became dark with blood. The old woman went home, and when she got home, her daughter awoke. "Ah, mother," says she, "I'm getting tired of being here. I'll go home." "Do sleep here tonight, daughter. Perhaps you won't have another chance of being with me." So the daughter stayed and spent the night there. In the morning she got up, and the mother got breakfast ready for her. She breakfasted, and then she said goodbye to her mother and went away, carrying a little girl in her arms, while her boy followed behind her. She came to the dike and called out, "Ossip, Ossip, come here." She called and called, but it did not come. Then she looked into the water, and there she saw a head floating about. Then she guessed what had happened. "Alas, my mother has killed him," she cried. There on the bank she wept and wailed, and then to her girl she cried, "Fly about as a wren, henceforth and evermore." And to her boy she cried, "Fly about as a nightingale, my boy, henceforth and evermore." "But I," she said, "will fly about as a cuckoo, crying cuckoo, henceforth and evermore." So that was our water snake. Quite an interesting story, I think. And people might recognize the bird we talked about last week. And here we have one origin story for the wren, which we talked about, and also the cuckoo and the nightingale.
Indeed. I think there is another version of this story, which is an origin story for some trees,
Yeah,
such as the aspen.
yeah, I read that story earlier as well. I don't remember exactly how the story went, but it ended with the mother turning herself and her two children into trees. And
Yes.
there is another version of a girl who marries a snake, and then she has twins, a girl and a boy, and she wants to christen them in her home village, and her mother comes out with a hatchet. So that's a warm welcome. So she turns,
Family, eh?
yeah, she turns her children into a nightingale and a cuckoo, and no one knows what happened to her carriage and horses, but on the roadside where that happened, there grew a dead thistle, I think it was. Um,
Oh,
there was some dead plant growing there, or dead flower.
that's interesting that there's several versions, and they seem to be origin stories
Mm-hmm.
for various things.
Oh,
I
the
guess.
nettle that sprang up on the roadside.
Oh, okay, dead nettle. Oh, nettle. That's interesting, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That is indeed one of the 9 herbs.
Yeah.
Don't ask me
So
to name all 9 off the top of my head. I'm not, I'm not that good at remembering, unfortunately.
no, neither am I, and I don't usually keep lists in my head either. So at least not perfectly. Um,
It's so hard.
yeah.
But yeah, I'm just thinking, like, and in terms of what snakes represent in this tale, I don't know, he kind of did trick her with, sitting on a shift, and you wouldn't think that a snake could force you to marry him.
No, we
But
saw
then
that.
again, she.
Yeah, we saw that with the frogs as well. Girls being married through trickery by some animal. There seems to be a reoccurring theme of that. Or they're being given away by their fathers, either willingly or not, to be married to an animal. So I suppose one way to look at them are what the different animals represent in the culture the story originated in. And with the snakes, they are associated very much with water. And also, as we mentioned at the start of the stream, transformation. Some cultures see them as immortal. Yeah. Some cultures saw them as immortal with the shedding of the skin. So, and with the water, you also have the area of feeling and uncontrollable emotion. And it definitely seems like an initiation for her. And I definitely thought it was interesting when her mother asked if she was doing well down in the water. And she says, "Very well indeed, mother. My life there is better than yours here." So it definitely seems like she went through some transformation there into a sort of higher state.
Well, yeah. I mean, generally, you got your water symbolizing the unmanifested, And really, the snake or the frog often symbolizing the primordial
Yeah.
quite a lot of the time.
Yeah, and considering she turns her children into birds and herself at the end, it seems like she might have tapped into her innate power by doing that, by
Yeah,
being taken
because
down into the water.
birds are then messengers to the other world.
Yeah.
Quite often they're associated with spirit journeys like that in many traditions.
Yeah. Also, it sort of echoes. Yeah, I think it sort of echoes the Persephone. I always have trouble with her name, Persephone. With that, Persephone is taken
Yes.
down to the underworld, and this girl is taken below the water surface, and then comes back. Although the end here was a bit more bloody. So, and this ties into.
It was a little bit.
Yeah. I think that's what you call a dragon-in-law instead of mother-in-law.
Well, yes.
Yeah. But I definitely think this has a straight tie to that we mentioned earlier, Veles.
Veles, yes.
Yeah, though.
Because she has been taken down.
Yeah.
The level of the lake is definitely below the ground. And, we have the Celtic and perception, which I think would have been similar to. And because Celts ranged across Eastern Europe as well, they had the perception of the pools as portals to the other world. The still freshwater pools, definitely. But I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a mix of Rune and Storm. Because apparently Veles went up from the underworld into the world of Perun and stole his daughter, which of course made Perun quite angry. And they battled it out, and Veles dies. And every creature he has taken, he has turned into something else. And when he dies, then all of those creatures are returned to, are released from his magic, and comes back as rain. So it's very tied to the seasons.
Yes.
But Veles doesn't die in the myth. It's said that he is reborn as a snake or a dragon. So that seems quite a close connection there.
Yeah, I would say that sounds quite a lot like Veles, the snake in that story.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
You definitely have, that sort of representation of snake as, the other world and the underworld. Definitely.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Definitely. It might have been a way to preserve the story after Christianity came in that region.
It might have been, yeah. That could be the thing.
Yeah, it is being permanent. He would reform himself as a serpent and shed his old skin and be reborn in a new body. So Very interesting.
About interesting relationships between species in the D-Life chat, including bacteria. Yes. Oh, and nettles are apparently good for making cordage.
Yeah.
I didn't know that about them. I think
is
that
that?
means rope. Cord is
Huh?
a string. You know, it's thick string. String which is a little bit closer to being rope. Cord. It's like really thin rope. It's the best way that I can describe it.
Yeah.
Not quite rope.
Yeah. Yeah. Den tänkte jag boka.
There's several stories with snakes, some of which are very similar. So you got several versions of that one, and you also got several versions of some others we have tonight. Like you've got King Lindorm. I found several stories very similar to that,
Yeah.
and one of my stories tonight reminds me of one you've told before, actually.
Yeah.
One of them reminds me of, I think it was Sun, Moon, and Talia that it reminded me of.
No,
Or was it?
it's
They're in the same as East, West, and
East of the Sun and West of the Moon.
East of the Sun and West of the Moon. I get them mixed up, you know?
Yeah, and
The
also
names.
King Valamon. King Valamon, the
Yes.
White Bear. That was definitely very similar.
Yeah, very similar themes. You will recognize, I think, some of the plot beats.
Who
Wait.
is Pasteur? Sorry,
Who's
it's
Louis
in.
Pasteur?
Yeah.
Louis Pasteur. He was a scientist who invented
boiling milk.
pasteurization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically heating up the milk to a certain point to get out bacteria. It is now standard
Well,
everywhere.
and there's sort of like well, it's not quite that straightforward, I don't think, because
No.
as the Paradox mentioned, he has a contemporary called Anthony Beauchamp, who I think was onto a lot of the same stuff. And of course, some people they don't like to pasteurize milk. You know, they don't think that's necessary. And to be fair, it might not be unless your cows have got TB. Is what some people argue, and they say it just kills natural bacteria. So I know some people who drink raw milk.
Yeah, I would
Let's try
actually
it.
prefer that.
Well,
Because at least I think it was brought up a few years ago in Norway. It's been a few years, I don't quite remember what it was, but they made very much out of, I think it was 5 people dying per year by drinking raw milk. 5 people?
It's not very many.
No.
But then how many people drink raw milk? I mean, I wouldn't if I was pregnant or immunologically vulnerable. I guess. I suppose that's who raw milk is not very suitable for.
Well, I tend to think that humans have survived for millions of years, so We can
It is
endure
true.
a few things, and my ancestors drank raw milk for thousands of years, and they
Very true.
survived. So,
Their cows were probably kept in much kind of healthier, nicer conditions.
yeah,
Definitely, back in the day.
yeah, and overall more healthy with the food they had and everything. Um, Basically,
Definitely, for sure.
my default position is that the Western world is a bit germophobic, and
Oh,
it's not really that needed.
hello, Didgeridoo 3.
Hey, good to see you.
Nice to see ya.
Yeah,
But yeah, I got a little bit sidetracked on a discussion of milk there.
yeah,
If you're just
we,
joining us.
yeah. This is not a show about milk.
I mean, could we do a show about milk? Could we do a show about cows? Possibly. We'd have to check whether there was enough stories about cows. Maybe if we expanded a lot into the Indo side of Indo-European. Could do, could do. But yes.
Yeah, I won't be learning the cow calling songs that are done in Scandinavia and the Netherlands and such. I don't think anyone would like to hear that.
Oh gods no, I'm not learning how to yodel. I mean, I can vaguely hold a tune, but I'm not learning how to yodel. That's not happening.
I wouldn't mind learning it. It can be very beautiful. I just don't think I have the ability to do it in a short time, or even at all. But we'll see. Maybe if I get some cows or something.
Maybe now we're getting milk-related stickers in the D life.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for the follow, for Piena. I don't know if I'm
Yeah.
saying your name right. But
Welcome.
yeah,
Yeah. Good to see you.
welcome. Should we have another story? Béchamp pushes health as a function of environment. Okay, not quite sure what that means. I do not science. So, but I know that there's sort of a vague versus thing going on there. But yeah,
Yeah.
we should definitely have another
Should we
one of the
take
stories.
The Girl and the Snake?
Yeah,
Perhaps?
sure, let's do that.
Yeah, I think
So
that's
I mean,
a
it's
good
quite a short
segue.
one.
Yeah.
Let's take it.
Okay.
Yeah, talking of cows, indeed. This girl is flipping useless at herding them,
Yeah.
apparently. But let's get into the story.
The sidelining that ended up not being such a sideline after all. Okay.
Oh, indeed.
Just let me get the story started. I hope it won't take as long this time. So bear with me. Sorry, I'm not quite sure. I'll just start it for you. I had a bit too much going on my computer, but here we go.
but he could not find.
I'm sorry. I have had a boomer moment. So I will have to start that again. I think I might just go back to the way I used to do things. Apparently, it's a bit too late in the evening for me to do this, so... Okay, let's go.
Snake. Bring home the cattle, but she could not find the herd. She got lost and came to a large mountain with gates and doors. She went inside. A table was standing there, set with all kinds of things to eat. There was also a bed there, and a large snake was lying on it. It said to the girl, "Have a seat." Did not do any of this. People are coming now who want to dance with you, but don't go with them. Soon afterward, people did come, and they wanted to dance with the girl, but she would have nothing to do with them. Began to eat and drink. The girl left the mountain and went home again. The next day she went into the woods looking for her herd, but she could not find what she was looking for. Instead, she got lost again and came to the same mountain. She went inside again and found everything the same as the first time. A set table with the snake. It said to her, as the time before, to eat. If you want to, lie down in this bed. If you want to. But if you don't want to, it's all right. Now a lot more people are coming who want to dance with you, but do not go with them. Snake had barely finished talking when a lot more people came in, and they began to dance and to eat and drink. The girl had nothing to do with them, but instead left the mountain and went home. On the third day, she went into the woods again, and the same thing happened to her as on the previous days. The snake invited her to eat and drink, which she did with a good appetite. After that, the snake asked her to lie down next to it, and the girl did that as well. Then the snake said, "Hold me in your arm." He did it. "Kiss me," said the snake. "You are afraid. Just put your apron between us." The girl did it, and in that instant the snake turned into a handsome young man. In reality, he was a prince who had been bewitched into this form through magic, but the girl's courage had saved him. Of course, two of them went away, and since then they have never been heard from again.
Hold on. I'm sorry. I really have to go back to my old way of doing things. Since I have just total boomer moments today. So we almost got a song at the end there, but yeah, that was The Girl and the Snake.
Yes, that was The Girl and the Snake. So that is a Swedish story. And I think certainly that story, and the people whom you can't dance with, that actually reminds me a lot of the good people, the fair folk. I'm not saying their proper name. If you don't know who they are by now, I'm not explaining them again, because every time that we do mention them, yeah. I have muted all my tabs.
I'm also muted. But there seems to be a bit of stuff going on tonight.
There is indeed. I
Um,
am talking through headphones. So I'm plugged in properly to my laptop. I just hit that. Sorry about bad noise. Okay, just with a strong echo. It's a strong echo.
I can't hear any echo on my side. Then there, I think that would be on the platform end.
Yes. I'm just double checking that I definitely have all tabs paused.
Yeah, so have I. I don't have any audio on it on.
That will be the bleep.
Yeah,
Yes.
maybe that's...
Bleep.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Maybe it was the mention of raw milk or something.
Maybe. The milk gods don't like that I am somewhat dubious about raw milk. Maybe I'm just not based enough to chug
Maybe.
raw milk.
Hopefully there's not any snakes running around being summoned.
Snakes. Nope. Not wanting. Well, there is a computer virus called a worm, but I don't think. Lynx is a sensible person. Lynx doesn't click on dodgy links. I don't think Lynx has a computer virus.
Well, I certainly hope not. So I do have the links in the shadows. I usually try to keep them clean. So
Yes.
yeah.
But yeah, it is reminding me of them, even though they're not a big thing in Scandinavia. But England and Ireland always had a lot of stories where you shouldn't start partying with the good people because, well, 200 years later, that sort of thing.
Yeah, we did have the one who went into the underworld. But it's more, in Scandinavia, it's more following men and women in the woods that might not be humans.
That's true. Don't follow strangers in woods.
No, and if
It's
it's
a generally good rule.
Yeah, I think that would apply in the cities as well. Didgeridoo. I'm sorry, I always butcher that word. just
Oh, thank you,
donated
Didgeridoo.
10 lemons. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Very kind of you.
Yeah.
Considering everything that's going on today.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that sort of snake story has the transformation with the kiss, which is different to a lot of these where the snake is required to take off skins. Feels like it might be maybe a more recent iteration of the thing. Because it's very
Well,
similar to the frog transformation in that respect. I don't know if the more
y-
complicated form is the older form of it.
maybe what came across my mind also in my second story is that the man needs a woman's love for some reason to be turned back into a human.
Mm,
He needs,
that is true.
yeah, he needs affection and bodily comfort.
Mm. And the dancing penguin just donated 14 lemons. Thank you very much.
Ah, thank you.
Didgeridoo has clarified that it is pronounced Didge-a-ree-do. Yes.
I have always had problems with that word, and in some circles I was in, it was if you wanted to be cool, they called it a didge, and that led for it to become didgeridoo in my head. So
A didge. I've never
yeah,
heard anyone call it a didge before. Well, you don't mention the didgeridoo an awful lot in England,
no,
to be fair. We try not to think about that sort of Australian business. But when we
well,
do say it, oh, thank you, Dancing Penguin. Lovely lemons for lovely ladies. Well,
thank you.
would I call myself lovely? Possibly not, but thank you.
Dancing across platforms today. That's a nice way to spend the evening.
Indeed. Dancing
So
penguins.
that was a nice one. So yeah, I definitely get the feeling in that category of animal transformations that the male needs a female love. Um, you know,
Yeah.
and not necessarily
Absolutely.
sexual love. Not necessarily sexual love. I will get more into that after Prince Lindworm. So yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to be expanded upon that theme and sort of in Prince Lindworm. Okay. Yeah, I think we've covered it in many of the previous episodes what we think this sort of redemption by woman means, and it certainly to me represents a balancing of forces of masculine and feminine, of certain attributes of the feminine being what is needed. That symbolism is quite prominent. Another thing that I find interesting about this one is that they go away and aren't heard of again, which again really does indicate disappearance into the other world. Usually. There's been an otherworldly husband situation, but it's usually an otherworldly bride situation. I feel like.
Yeah,
So
That's
that was giving me strong sort of vibes there.
yeah, it does seem to be more common with an otherworldly bride, but we do have some stories where it's the man who's the otherworldly bridegroom.
Well, yeah, we've had several sort of situations of animal husbands. There was the one with the white dog. So it's not an unheard of trope. And this is definitely the snake husband as a whole trope, but it's part of the wider animal husbands trope because all of these tales are Arne Thompson Uthertype 433C. I think they were labeled as. So that's a whole bunch of cultures that have snake husband, otherworldly snake husband stories. But yeah, we should
Mhm.
maybe have King Lindworm then, because
Yeah,
it builds on the themes.
yeah, it does. My story tonight is Prince Lindworm. That is the Norwegian variant. There's also a Swedish and a Danish variant that are a bit different. So I might record one or both of them to have as comparison, because they are a bit different and they keep going where the Norwegian one ends up. So
Yes.
yeah, in line of the show, I thought the shorter one was the best to go with. So I will let you
Yes.
know if I get the second one up as a bonus story.
Well, indeed, it would be interesting, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hello, Celtic Britain. And Flynn Photo. Good to see you both.
Good to see you. I will.
Didgeridoo is American.
Yeah. So
What it comes of didgeridoo then? I'm just kidding. You can have a favourite Australian instrument. I just be very
yeah,
passionate about didgeridoos.
it does have a very pleasant sound, I think.
I think it sounds kind of similar. Instruments end up coincidentally making a very similar sound
Yeah.
to the didgeridoo. I think it might be
Yeah,
more versatile than you think.
maybe.
But I haven't listened to that much music with didgeridoos, if I'm honest with you. It's a genre I need to expand my knowledge of.
Well, there was a period where I came across it quite a bit. Not my favorite, but definitely not any of the worst either. So a sound bath with them are quite pleasant, actually. When it's
Oh, nice.
when it's physical and you get the vibrations hitting your body and everything, that is actually quite pleasant.
We're having a canyon stream. Echo still bad? Maybe. Oh well.
I'm sorry, there's nothing I can think of to fix that. So yeah.
Yeah, we might have to see what's causing that. But we shall play King Lindorm now, and please to let us know how the quality is
Yeah,
on that.
hopefully that will settle the problem in one way or another.
You guys are good.
Thank you.
Okay. We're not too not understandable right now. due to that echo. I know echoes can be really distracting for me quite a lot of the time.
Yeah, same with me. I have a slight decrease in hearing in one ear, so differentiating sounds can be a bit hard. So when I get an echo going, it can actually almost be physically painful.
Ow. Yeah, that's not good. That's not good. That's
No,
not good. So
I get extra dizzy by it.
do hope that everyone's having an okay listening experience. I wonder if didgeridoos make a good sound frequency for health, like Schumann resonance.
They do.
I don't know what the Schumann resonance is.
That is, I don't know if it's one frequency or many, but it's within sound healing. And didgeridoos, yes, I'm sorry. I'm sure you said that, typed that just to make me say it again. But yes, it is used within sound healing. It is within the family of frequencies that are supposed to be healing and good for your health. So yeah, I do think it's a help. Cats purring, yes, that is very pleasant. I do have a cat and I love having her in my lap purring with the vibrations going and the soft fur and just a little furry ball of love in my lap. They are very healing.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Okay, I will play the story then.
Yes, let's have a story.
Yeah. For one thing, they had no children. And this often made them both sad, because the queen wanted their child to play with, and the king wanted an heir to the kingdom. One day the queen went out for a walk by herself, and she met an ugly old woman. The old woman was just like a witch, but she was a nice kind of witch, not a cankerous sort. She said, "Why do you look so doleful, pretty lady?" "It's no use my telling you," answered the queen. "Nobody in the world can help me." "Oh, you never know," said the old woman. "Just you let me hear what your trouble is, and maybe I can put things right." "My dear woman, how can you?" said the queen, and she told her, "The king and I have no children. That's why I'm so distressed." "Well, you needn't be," said the old witch. "I can set that right in a twinkling, if only you will do exactly as I tell you. Listen, tonight at sunset, take a little drinking cup with 2 ears and put it bottom upwards on the ground in the northwest corner of your garden. Then go and lift it up tomorrow morning at sunrise, and you will find 2 roses underneath it, one red and one white. If you eat the red rose, a little boy will be born to you. If you eat the white rose, a little girl will be sent. But whatever you do, you mustn't eat both the roses, or you'll be sorry. That I warn you. Only one. Remember that." "Thank you 1,000 times," said the queen. "This is good news indeed." And she wanted to give the old woman her gold ring, but the old woman wouldn't take it. So the queen went home and did as she had been told, and next morning at sunrise she stole out into the garden and lifted up the little drinking cup. She was surprised, for indeed she had hardly expected to see anything, but there were 2 roses underneath it, one red and one white. And now she was dreadfully puzzled, for she did not know which to choose. "If I choose the red one," she thought, I will have a little boy, and he may grow up and go to the wars and get killed. But if I choose the white one and have a little girl, she will stay at home a while with us. But later on she will get married and go away and leave us. So, whichever it is, we may be left with no child after all. However, at last she decided on the white rose, and she ate it. And it tasted so sweet that she took and ate the red one too, without ever remembering the old woman's solemn warning. Some time after this, the king went away to the wars, and while he was still away, the queen became the mother of twins. One was a lovely baby boy, and the other was a lindworm, or a serpent. She was terribly frightened when she saw the lindworm, but he wiggled away out of the room, and nobody seemed to have seen him but herself, so that she thought that it must have been a dream. The baby prince was so beautiful and so healthy. The queen was full of joy, and likewise, as you may suppose, was the king when he came home and found his son and heir. Not a word was said by anyone about the lindworm. Only the queen thought about it now and then. Many days and years passed by, and the baby grew up into a handsome young prince, and it was time that he got married. The king sent him off to visit foreign kingdoms in the royal coach with 6 white horses to look for a princess grand enough to be his wife. But at the very first crossroad, the way was stopped by an enormous lindworm, enough to frighten the bravest. He lay in the middle of the road with a great open mouth and cried, "A bride for me before a bride for you." Then the prince made the coach turn around and try another road, but it was all no use, for at the first crossways there lay the lindworm again, crying out, "A bride for me before a bride for you." So the prince had to turn back home again to the castle and give up his visits to the foreign kingdoms. And his mother, the queen, had to confess that what the lindworm said was true, for he was really the eldest of her twins, and so he ought to have a wedding first. There seemed nothing for it but to find a bride for the lindworm if his younger brother, the prince, were to be married at all. So the king rode to a distant country and asked for a princess to marry his son. But of course he didn't say which son, and presently a princess arrived. But she wasn't allowed to see her bridegroom until he stood by her side in the great hall and was married to her. And then, of course, it was too late for her to say she wouldn't have him. But next morning the princess had disappeared. The lindworm lay sleeping all alone, and it was quite plain that he had eaten her. After a little while, the prince decided that they might now go journeying again in search of a princess, and off he drove in the royal chariot with the 6 white horses. But at the first crossways, there lay the lindworm, crying with his great wide open mouth, "A bride for me before a bride for you." So the carriage tried another road, and the same thing happened. And they had to turn back again this time, just as formerly. And the king wrote to several foreign countries to know if anyone would marry his son. At last another princess arrived, this time from a very far distant land. And of course, she was not allowed to see her future husband before the wedding took place. And then, lo and behold, it was the lindworm who stood at her side. And the next morning the princess had disappeared, and the lindworm lay sleeping all alone, and it was quite clear that he had eaten her. By and by the prince started on his quest for the 3rd time, and at the first crossroads there lay the lindworm with his great wide open mouth, demanding a bride as before. And the prince went straight back to the castle and told the king, "You must find another bride for my elder brother." "I don't know where I am to find her," said the king. "I have already made enemies of 2 great kings who sent their daughters here as brides, and I have no notion how I can obtain a 3rd lady. People are beginning to say strange things, and I am sure no princess will dare to come." Now, down in a little cottage near the wood, there lived the king's shepherd, an old man with his only daughter. And the king came one day and said to him, "Will you give me your daughter to marry my son the lindworm, and I will make you rich for the rest of your life?" "No, sire," said the shepherd, "that I cannot do. She is my only child, and I want her to take care of me when I am old. Besides, if the lindworm would not spare 2 beautiful princesses, he won't spare her either. He will just gobble her up, and she is much too good for such a fate." But the king wouldn't take no for an answer, and at last the man had to give in. Well, when the old shepherd told his daughter that she was to be Prince Lindworm's bride, she was utterly in despair. She went out into the woods, crying and wringing her hands and bewailing her hard fate. And while she wandered to and fro, an old witch woman suddenly appeared out of a big hollow oak tree and asked her, "Why do you look so doleful, pretty lass?" The shepherd girl said, "It's no use my telling you, for nobody in the world can help me." "Oh, you never know," said the old woman. "Just you let me hear what your trouble is, and maybe I can put things right." How can you?" said the girl. "For I'm to be married to the king's eldest son, who is a lindworm. He has already married 2 beautiful princesses and devoured them. He will eat me too. No wonder I am distressed." "Well, you needn't be," said the witch woman. "All that can be set right in a twinkling, if only you will do exactly as I tell you." So the girl said she would. "Listen then," said the old woman. "After the marriage ceremony is over, and when it is time for you to retire to rest, you must ask to be dressed in 10 snow-white shifts. You must then ask for a tub full of lye and a tub full of fresh milk, and as many whips as a boy can carry in his arms, and have all these things brought into your bedchamber. Then, when the lindworm tells you to shed a shift, do you bid him to slough a skin. And when all his skins are off, you must dip the whips in the lye and whip him. Next, you must wash him in the fresh milk. And lastly, you must take him and hold him in your arms, if it's only for 1 moment." "The last is the worst notion. Ew," said the shepherd's daughter, and she shuddered at the thought of holding the cold, slimy, scaly lindworm. "Do just as I have said, and all will go well," said the old woman. Then she disappeared again in the oak tree. When the wedding day arrived, the girl was fetched in the royal chariot with the 6 white horses, and taken to the castle to be decked as a bride. And she asked for 10 snow-white shifts to be brought her, and a tub of lye, and a tub of milk, and as many whips as a boy could carry in his arms. The ladies and courtiers in the castle thought, of course, that this was some bit of peasant superstition, all rubbish and nonsense. But the king said, "Let her have whatever she asks for." She was then arrayed in the most wonderful robes, and looked the loveliest of brides. She was led to the hall where the wedding ceremony was to take place, and she saw the lindworm for the first time as he came in and stood by her side. So they were married, and a great wedding feast was held, a banquet fit for the son of a king. When the feast was over, the bridegroom and bride were conducted to their apartment with music and torches and a great procession. As soon as the door was shut, the lindworm turned to her and said, "Fair maiden, shed a shift." The shepherd's daughter answered him, "Prince Lindworm, slough a skin." "No one has ever dared tell me to do that before," said he. "But I command you to do it now," said she. Then he began to moan and wiggle, and in a few minutes a long snakeskin lay upon the floor beside him. The girl drew off her first shift and spread it on top of the skin. The lindworm said again to her, "Fair maiden, shed a shift." The shepherd's daughter answered him, "Prince Lindworm, slough a skin." "No one has ever dared tell me to do that before," said he. "But I command you to do it now," said she. Then, with groans and moans, he cast off the second skin, and she covered it with her second shift. The lindworm said for the 3rd time, "Fair maiden, shed a shift." The shepherd's daughter answered him again, "Prince Lindworm, slough a skin." "No one has ever dared tell me to do that before," said he, and his little eyes rolled furiously. But the girl was not afraid, and once more she commanded him to do as she bade. And so this went on until 9 lindworm skins were lying on the floor, each of them covered with a snow-white shift. And there was nothing left of the lindworm but a huge thick mass, most horrible to see. Then the girl seized the whips, dipped them in the lye, and whipped him as hard as ever she could. Next she bathed him all over in the fresh milk. Lastly, she dragged him into the bed and put her arms around him, and she fell fast asleep that very moment. Next morning, very early, the king and the courtiers came and peeped in through the keyhole. They wanted to know what had become of the girl, but none of them dared enter the room. However, in the end, growing bolder, they opened the door a tiny bit, and there they saw the girl, all fresh and rosy, and beside her lay no Lindworm, but the handsomest prince that anyone could wish to see. The king ran out and fetched the queen, and after that there were such rejoicings in the castle as never were known before or since. The wedding took place all over again, much finer than the first, with festivals and banquets and merrymakings for days and weeks. No bride was ever so beloved by a king and queen as this peasant maid from the shepherd's cottage. There was no end to the love and the kindness towards her, because, by her sense and her calmness and her courage, she had saved her son, Prince Lindworm. So that was the story of the prince who was a worm. And just muting everywhere. So yeah, it's an interesting story. In some ways, I think it's a blend of several tropes that we see. We have seen quite a few tropes with a couple wanting children and some fairy, or in this story, a kind witch coming in and helping, but with strict instructions that aren't followed, and trouble ensues. So that,
Yes, indeed.
yeah, always follow the instructions. That is very important.
That's generally the rule. Get yourself involved with any magical stranger. Please follow the instructions to the T.
Yeah.
Do not attempt to ignore instructions from mysterious old women.
No.
We'll only lead to badness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did find it interesting. Yeah. Go on.
I was going to say, I find it interesting that she consumes 2 roses out of, well, greed, essentially, and, you know, wanting to have more of the taste, and she's wanting to have both as an insurance, and then she ends up having a snake. So she ends up having a snake because of greed.
Yeah, or
And that
because
seems quite symbolic.
Yeah, another way to see it is that she really wants to keep the children she have. You know, she's afraid that the son would go off to war and be killed. And if there is a daughter, she will grow up and marry and move away. So
it's kind of like about, it seems like it's parental overprotectiveness turning a child into something that isn't a functioning person.
Yeah.
Which I think everyone's seen, yeah.
Yeah, it's you could say her motivation is egotistical, in a sense. And I do see that in quite a few women actually today. I think that is mostly prevalent with women who have been focused on their career, and then they get a baby and become what they call a womb gazer. Because
I don't think we have that expression, but I can get the general sense.
That is my personal expression for it. Because they get so caught up in the child that they think everyone else should have their world focused around their baby. So it's not really the baby itself, it's having produced a life. And that is, of
Mm.
course, a product of the womb. I've seen fathers doing that as well, so it's not just women. It's just an interesting phenomenon.
It's somewhat understandable. You know, you're very, very preoccupied
Mhm.
with keeping your child safe. It's, you know, they're the thing that you love most in the world, more than yourself. And with the constant broadcasting of dangers today in the world, especially, you know, and the fact that we know there's many, many dangerous people in our societies, I can have sympathy the way overprotective parenting
Yeah.
has happened, and of course with the doctrine that we're all special, unique snowflake individuals.
Yeah.
You know,
It's sort of the
the
helicopter
thing that
parent that yeah, so
my
sort of
child
the
has to be happy. Everything has to revolve around
yeah,
them. Yeah.
yeah. um, I'm not really derogatory of it. Though I can at times find the imbalance a bit annoying at times. I don't have any of those in my personal circle, but I've met enough of them in situations where they're,
Mm.
the result is just a bit mind blowing. I have heard that in America there's now a phenomenon of not only helicopter parents but drone parents. I have heard of one woman who have taken their child's first job interview for them, their interview for entry into college.
What?
Yeah, hence drone.
Well, that is that's quite extreme. That's
Yeah,
totally useless. They're not trying to employ your mum, are they?
no,
Oh
exactly.
dear. I do feel sorry for them. They will not know how to function
Yeah,
in the slightest.
exactly. But I don't know if these women have longed for a child for years and years and finally have them, or if it's a revelation when they do have the child. The joy and contentment they get from it. So um, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know the motivation behind it, so I'm not really derogatory of it. I do understand it. It just becomes a bit comical.
It does really.
Yeah, but
I
here
struggle to.
yeah,
I don't judge it too much because I don't know what I'm going to be like when I have kids. I don't know.
you never do know until you have them. So that's just the way it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
yeah, the mum of the
another
Lindorm is definitely overprotective.
Yeah, I would say that. However, I do think it's a bit of a mystery tied in with the roses, because the witch says that if she eats the red rose, she will have a son, and if she eats the white rose, a girl will be given to her. But it doesn't say that she will give birth to a girl. So
That's true.
it might be that she would have a
That
son
is true.
no matter what. And perhaps the white rose would give a worm in any case. She did eat the white rose first, and the snake was born first. So that's
Yes.
my mind is kind of trained to look at mysteries like that, but there is no answer in the story.
You do gotta watch for technicalities with fairy tale instructions.
Yeah,
That might have been the case.
yeah,
I feel like the symbolism of the roses is appropriate for boy and girl, though, because when you have a red rose, it generally tends to mean the more, passionate.
Mm-hmm.
A white rose, that tends to mean more purity. I think passion and energy are definitely more associated with the masculine, whereas purity is definitely more associated with the feminine.
Yeah, well, when it comes to the usual colorings for boys and girls, this with blue for boys and pink for girls, that is actually the opposite of what it used to be 100 years ago. That was changed. Usually that pink was a masculine color because that was associated with red, which is in many cases associated with
Yes.
masculinity. And I don't remember what that exactly said about the blue, but it's a very calm color.
Well, it's again
So,
calm, yeah.
yeah. So
Might be a thing.
yeah.
Oh goodness. And then people use the pink-blue reversal to try and invalidate the concept of masculinity and femininity, which is annoying. They do
Exactly.
have-
With ties, as always. And again, in this story, we see that the last thing she has to do is to hold the snake close. And that is what she thinks will be the hardest. And well, the lindworm did wiggle out of the room when he was born, immediately. So in that sense, his mother didn't have a chance, but she was horrified when she gave birth to a snake, which is quite obvious. I think I would be. But again, we see the theme of getting physical contact and closeness to a woman. That is the final thing that
True.
breaks the spell. I did find that very interesting.
Yeah. And he wouldn't let his mother hold him close, so yeah, you could get quite Jungian with that, couldn't you?
Yeah.
You could. He needs nurturing.
Yeah.
He
The
needs
ultimate
the
mother
nurturing
complex.
quality of the feminine. Yep. Definitely.
Yeah.
Giant snake's personal problem.
Yeah, whether or not he
Which
has
is
integrated
quite
his
suitable for
anima.
this show. Had he integrated his anima? No, probably not. And you can look at these things from the Jungian perspective. It's quite valid because I think they work on that level, at the animistic level
Yeah.
as well.
Do you think that is one of his bases for his theories as well? Based in the old knowledge and everything. So I don't actually know that much about him. I do have one of his books, but I have never finished it. His writings tends to be quite
Yeah, I gotta
dry.
read. I gotta read more Jung, but I don't think you have to read Jung directly to get a good grasp on him. I think fortunately many people have done good summaries. It'd be good to have a look though.
Yeah.
That just seems like this seems like a mission for old age as well. Like
Yeah.
when I'm retired from doing anything, had children, whatever, I'm just gonna spend most of my old age reading all of the books about everything. I mean, that's how the Vedas say you should deal with these things, I believe.
Yeah.
How are you, Haas? They say, oh yeah,
Oh,
we're pretty good.
yeah.
I'm in undisclosed temporary location, but yeah, I had a pretty good week, even though there was a little bit of traveling to do, a little bit of setup.
Yeah. I have
Generally
had
doing quite
one of
well. Well, thank you for the
general.
lemon.
Yeah, thank you. I'm generally good, though I've had that week where everything seems to happen at once. And our wonderful Norwegian government is doing no good. So, yeah, I have been better, but I have
Yes,
also been much worse.
passports and the like.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
that about sums it up sometimes, doesn't it?
yeah, and when one
Could
thing
be better.
happens,
Have been
yeah,
better, could be worse.
yeah. Oh, well, in my experience, the bad stuff happens in clusters, so hopefully my cluster is almost done. So then I will be back to normal and everything will be good. Another interesting point in this
Fingers
story
crossed.
was, yeah, another interesting point was the reactions of the courtiers for what the maiden wanted. 10 shifts, a bath of lye, a bath of milk, and some whips.
That's very true.
Oh, yeah, it's just some peasant tradition filled with superstitions and everything. Did they think
They're just
she
like, oh,
was.
okay.
Yeah, what fetish would that fall under these days? Oh, she likes a bit of whipping
I
on
have no
her
idea.
wedding day. So,
Oh dear.
yeah.
Peasant tradition. Okay. Sounds dodge, but whatevs.
Yeah.
But people don't question a lot of things in folk stories. Animals come up and straight up talk to them, and they're like, "Oh, hey, Mr. Fox."
Yeah, well, that is
So yeah,
one of the.
obviously, some weird things.
Yeah, that is one of the characteristics of folk tales is that there are talking animals and people just take them for granted. That's in their world. Whereas in non-folk
That would be
tale
cool.
stories, then they're just like, what? Oh my god, what's happening? I'm going crazy. So,
I do kind of wish I could understand what dogs were saying.
it would be fun to
That
have
would be quite
talking
fun.
animals. Yeah. Talking animals in general, though I would like to know what my cat is saying at times. In particular when she wants my
Definitely.
attention and does everything she knows she isn't supposed to do. It would be much better if she could just tell me.
Yeah, it's like asking you to let her out in the middle of the stream.
Yeah.
Humans started streaming.
Yeah, she's been good tonight, but it's raining, so that's probably why. But they usually do
Jarl
want
Angus
something.
just followed.
Hmm?
Yes. Leander Jarl Angus just followed on DLive, which is really cool.
Ah,
And it's said that dogs, cats, cows, and horses, due to contact with humans, can be human in their next life, so they're human in their next life.
Ah,
Which is interesting.
yeah, that reminds me of, I don't know how actual that is in Buddhism, but at least in the populist Buddhist stuff I've heard, that you get reincarnated into what you deserve. So with cats, dogs, cows, and horses, they being so close to humans, I would definitely think that would line up with that thought. And hello, Ratus, Swedicus. Good to see you as always. And always with that gif. I'm sorry, sticker.
Yes. Always the rat sticker.
Yeah.
It's how you know Ratus Swedicus
Yeah.
has arrived.
It does have its calling card. And also we get the 3s and 9s in the story.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, it was the third bride that managed to break the spell, and he had to shed 9 skins. So that is quite interesting. I'm always fascinated by 9 in stories.
I mean, it's definitely been symbolic of a lot of magic. 9, 3 being the magic number.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that's another sort of Norse connection, Germanic, Odinic connection type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely see 9 as very significant
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the time.
Yeah, in this story, I do see a bit of an echo of both the Midgard serpent and Nidhogg in the Lindworm. I think they're also mentioned
so.
in the sagas, that is the Lindworm. It's sort of, in some ways it seems like a blend of serpent and dragon.
Yes, like they do get very mixed up, as we were talking about in our episode on dragons. The terms dragon, worm, serpent, they get used very interchangeably, for sure. They do. And they have a lot of the same symbology half the time. Although I'd say dragons are more unambiguously bad in European mythology.
Yeah.
And generally represented as very good in Asian mythology.
Yeah.
There's more clear, it's more clear cut with dragons.
Yeah. I would say
Definitely.
that. Leonend, is that how you say the name? I hope so. So
Yeah.
there's also 9 in the Vedic tradition.
Ah, yeah.
And something else I can't pronounce.
The Navagraha, 9 heavenly bodies. Probably not great pronunciation of Navagraha there.
Well, you at least managed it. Some words I have to hear before I'm able to say them. Oh, thank you for the ice cream.
English. Is the SC on the end of your name pronounced sh? Or is it isk? I have a feeling like it is sh, but I don't know. I should actively be trying to learn more Old English. Yonder Old English. Okay, that's a good pronunciation. It can be.
I have particular problems when it comes to C's, Because we don't use them in Norwegian except in foreign words or in names. So I'm never sure if it's an S or a K. And I usually get it wrong for the first time. That's basically the rule for me.
Yeah, and English. Okay, so sh, or s or sk, depending on the period and dialect. Most say sc. Oh yeah. Yeah, well, check out Simon Roper. Also do check out Leander English. Okay, whoops. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's difficult sometimes to indicate how it's pronounced
Yeah.
in text. But yeah,
Please,
check Simon
please-
Roper. I hadn't heard of,
No.
but
Please spam your links in the chat on the live if you want to. Then we can repost them on YouTube.
yes, links to Old English resources in the chat that everybody has. Leander Old English. Please feel free to post channel.
Yeah. We always like to get new sources and, create a network and everything. So feel free.
Yes.
There we had Simon Roger, I suppose, come out.
Simon Roper, I think it was. Hadn't heard. And there's English with the channel.
Yeah, it was over. My screen is a bit far away from me, so at times it's a bit hard to read. I need to fix that.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Old English. Definitely. You put them down, or maybe it's just me and I lack discipline. But I should be looking into a lot more of the Old English because it's fascinating stuff. Beautiful sounding language.
Yeah, I have considered learning Old Norse. I
Kevin.
do think that is a bit of a large undertaking.
Okay, Kevin, that's good. That's a bit less of a mouthful, Kevin, actually. Think away, Kevin.
That's easier. Yeah.
But yeah.
Should we have our last story for tonight?
Yes, let's have the last story. We shall be wrapping up after that. What is your last story for tonight?
The
Thanks.
Silk Spinster.
Oh wait,
that
that
is
was
yours?
my one. Yes,
Yeah.
we have my one left.
Yeah.
Well, bye, Kevin. Everything on the replay as usual.
Yeah. Goodbye. See you later.
Happy American Mother's Day. Yes.
Yeah. Happy Mother's
Well
Day.
past for me.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for the lemons, Ratus and Yankee.
Thank you. Okay, I will get the story going.
The Silk Spinster. Once upon a time, there was a peasant. He worked in the woods and took his oldest daughter along to help him. When the day grew hot, he took off his jacket and laid it in the grass. When his work was finished, he asked his daughter to fetch it for him. She went to it, but there was a worm lying on it. She did not want to pick it up. So she ran back to her father and asked him what she should do. He told her not to be afraid of the worm. She should just throw it aside and bring him his jacket. She did this. He went home. The next day, the peasant again went to work in the woods, taking his second daughter along. Everything happened as before, and in the end, threw the worm aside, and she and her father returned home together. On the third day, the first daughter was to go along again, but the third daughter asked the father to take her. She wanted to help out like the others. They laughed at her and asked her just how she would be able to help. They had a low opinion of her and kept her at home like a Cinderella. But she begged her father so earnestly that he finally said that she might come along. When it was time to go home, her father told her to fetch his jacket. She went to it and found the worm on it. But she said to it, "Dear little worm, would you like a soft place to lie?" The worm looked at her with bright, friendly eyes, as though it wanted to say, "Yes." Therefore, he gathered together some moss and made him a nice, soft nest. As soon as she had laid him in it, the worm began to speak and asked her, "Would you like to enter my service? All you have to do is carry me about for a few hours each day. For this, you will receive a good wage and food and drink as well. You do this for 3 years. I will be redeemed because I am an enchanted prince, and then I will marry you." The girl said that she would do it, and the worm said, "Then come here tomorrow at the same time." After that, she went home with her father. Then she said, "I have lived at home for long enough. I am going to try my luck out in the world." They all laughed at her, saying, "You, Cinderella, who would have any use for you?" The girl replied, "I already have a position." Asked her father to allow her to leave. He did not want to give his permission, because even if she did not understand very much, she was still a good worker. Finally, he gave in to her begging, and the next day she set forth. She went into the woods and soon found the worm. He was very pleased that she had come, and he told her that she should now carry him around a little. That she did, and when the time was up, a splendid castle suddenly appeared. In the castle there was a great hall with a large table, all decked out with food and drink, more beautiful than anything she had ever seen in her entire lifetime. She ate and drank her fill, and then went to bed. Every day she carried the worm for about an hour or two, and then went to the castle, where everything was prepared for her, and where she was splendidly provided for. After a year had passed, she asked the worm for permission to visit her father. He agreed, on the condition that she return promptly. She took gold and other precious things for her father and sisters, and went home. When she arrived with her treasures, sisters wanted to know where she had gotten it all, and who her master was, but she told them nothing, for the worm had forbidden her to do so. They beat her and scolded her, but she said nothing. The next day she went back into the woods with the worm and again carried it about for an hour or two each day. At the end of the second year, she once again visited her father and her sisters, and also at the end of the third year. When she left the worm, he ordered her also this last time to return promptly, and she promised to do so. Her father and her sisters insisted that she tell them who her master was and where she worked, and they refused to let her go. Finally, tore herself away with force. When she returned to the woods, it was too late. The worm was no longer there. Sadly, she looked everywhere, but that castle had disappeared, and the worm as well. For while she was away, the spell had lapsed, and he had turned back into a king, and he was now back at home in his own kingdom. The girl decided to search for him throughout the world. On her way, she came to a hut in a forest where an old woman lived, whom she asked for shelter for the night. The old woman received her in a friendly manner, and the next morning when she was about to leave, gave her 3 apples. He told her that there was a golden spindle in the first one, golden yarn reel in the second one, and a golden spinning wheel in the third one, and told her whom she would meet, and what she should do. The girl kindly thanked the friendly old woman, and set forth. Many days later, and after she had walked a great distance, she came to a glass mountain. She did not know how she could cross over it, because it was so smooth, always slid back down. Finally, saw a smithy not far away. She went there, had horseshoes attached to her hands and knees, climbed over the mountain. Where the king lived, who had been the worm that she had carried about every day. Already married, had a beautiful wife, and had long since forgotten the girl. She disguised herself, and went to the castle, where she hired herself out as a silk spinster. On the first day, she opened the first apple that the old woman in the woods had given her. She took out the golden spindle. When the queen saw it, she liked it very much, and wanted to buy it from the girl. "No," she said, "it is not for sale, but I will give it to you. Let me sleep with the king one night. Why not?" thought the queen, and gave her promise. As evening approached, she gave the king a sleeping potion. When he was fast asleep, he sent for the silk spinster, and led her into the king's bedroom. She sat next to his bed, cried bitterly. "Now I know that thanklessness is the way of the world," said. "3 years I carried you about as a worm. For your sake I received harsh blows, harsh words to my father and sisters. I had horseshoes attached to my hands and knees in order to climb over a glass mountain. Now you have forgotten everything, taken another wife." But the king was so fast asleep that he did not understand. At dawn, the queen came and led the silk spinster out again. Sadly, he took the second apple, broke it open, and took out the golden yarn reel. When the queen saw it, she admired it greatly, asked the girl to sell it to her. Once again, she said it was not for sale, but could be earned if she were allowed to sleep with the king for another night. The queen gave her promise, and everything happened as during the first night. Lay in deep sleep, and no amount of crying, complaining, could waken him. However, one of the king's servants had seen the queen bring the spinster into the king's bedroom. He was curious, and listened to everything that the silk spinster said. The next day, he told the king what he had seen and heard. But that morning, the queen had once again led the silk spinster out of the king's bedroom. In desperation, the girl opened her last apple, the one with the golden spinning wheel. When the queen saw it, he said he would let her sleep with the king yet another night. Give her the golden spinning wheel. The girl agreed, and that evening, once again, gave her husband a sleeping potion. But he only pretended to drink it. Secretly poured it out. Then lay down, pretended to sleep. The queen fetched the silk spinster and led her into the king's bedroom. The girl sat sadly next to the king's bed and cried bitterly. Now I know that thanklessness is the way of the world, she said. 3 years I carried you about as a worm. For your sake I received blows and harsh words to my father and sisters. I had horseshoes attached to my hands and knees in order to climb over the glass mountain. You have forgotten everything. Taken another wife. The king listened silently to every word, but pretended to be asleep. Festive meal, and he invited the silk spinster to take her place at his right side. When everyone was seated, he said, I want to present all of you with a question and ask for your honest, open answer. Many years ago, I lost the key to my chest, and therefore had a new one made. But now I have found the old one. Which one should I use from now on? The old one, said, as with one. Old one always fits better. Now, said the king, silk spinster, who is sitting here at my right side, took care of me for 3 years, while I was an enchanted worm, suffered greatly on my behalf. Therefore, I would like to leave my wife for as long as the first one is alive, and marry her.
So that's what that was about. Um, yeah.
I rather liked it, and I had some sort of
What are you doing?
ideas and things to say about it. There was there a clicking noise?
Yeah.
It might be my touchpad. Sorry. I
Okay.
use the buttons. But yeah, the first thing that I really noticed about this one was that it was actually very similar to one that you'd previously told links. King Valanon, or East of the Sun, West of the Moon. I don't
Yeah,
remember the title correctly.
yeah,
And we did
that's
mention
it.
that a bit earlier.
Yeah, and by the way, I am working on re-recording those stories and get them up as separate videos. That was from our second show, so the audio quality wasn't good at all. So I want to have that properly done. So hopefully that will be out as soon as possible.
Yes, hopefully indeed. Those are two very interesting stories indeed. There's a few. There are differences with this one, of course. But what's very similar is spending a night with her lost suitor in return for the gifts she's really been given. But this time she hasn't fallen prey to any temptation of her mother to like look at her lover. That is the element that is missing there. And talking of these gifts, like I do find them interesting. They are all spinning related. A golden spindle in the first one, a golden yarn reel in the second apple, and a golden spinning wheel in the third one. And they're given to her by an old woman. So we do have this fate imagery again. And so it often feels like it might be a fig-like figure in these scenarios. Especially since that this is German as well, so it is a Germanic tale, and she's said to know the fates of all this fig. And the apples as well. It's interesting that these instruments of fate and spinning, which is always associated with fate, come inside the apples and the representations that they have of fertility and knowledge. Forbidden in the Christian culture, but also something that Hercules took in the Greek culture, and also some degree of trouble and turmoil with Paris giving the apple to Aphrodite, so apples cause fights as well. So it's interesting imagery there, and
Yeah,
I think maybe this gift of tweaking the future coming along with a feminine symbol of fertility like the apple sort of indicated some sort of feminine initiation like that, I would think.
yeah. Uh, I would definitely like to take a closer look at golden apples.
Yes, true.
They have cropped
That
up
is
in
true.
quite a few stories we've had, and in quite a few scenarios as well. So that might be perhaps not enough to do a show on, but perhaps a video.
Yeah, true. There's certainly a theme which we can explore more in future episodes. Maybe not a whole show about apples because they tend to play one part in the story, definitely. But
Yeah,
they're very rarely the main focus. Except in a few cases. But certainly the imagery is then their use is interesting here. Especially like, they also have connotations of eternal life and stuff. And so it does seem vaguely like being initiated into Voluspa type mysteries,
yeah.
that sort of thing.
The old women definitely are tied to spinning and or yarn, which definitely takes the mind to the fates and the thread of life. Like we saw in one of my frog stories, the prince were given balls of yarn that it was to let unroll on the ground and follow it. So he's basically following his fate.
Mm.
So there's quite a few interesting imagery when it comes to that. And it's not just the
It's true.
everyday spinning. It's definitely tied to something larger than that, I would say.
I think you broke up a little bit for me there,
Oh, okay.
just a tad.
Yeah, I was just saying that it seems to be tied to the more deeper stuff in life and not just the mundane spinning for clothes. Unless you're talking about the Dutch
Yes.
stories, because their story seems to be covered in linen.
Yeah. The Dutch, again, you just broke up a little bit. Their story seems to be different. I haven't covered much of the Dutch stories about spinning.
I've read a few of
Um,
them, and they seem to all center around them getting prosperity by making linen. So
yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that'd be an interesting sort of genre of story to explore. Apologies if there are any background noises in my environment. I don't know if there is, if you're hearing them. Another thing I really found interesting about this story is the glass mountain, and she doesn't know how she can cross over that because it was so smooth, and she always slides back down. But she goes to get help from a smithy, and he puts horseshoes on her hands and knees. And so smithies are very much associated with the esoteric. They're definitely associated with being magical, and she's gone there and had horseshoes attached to her hands and knees, and those are definitely associated with good luck, and of course horses as well. And mountains being places generally thought of as close to heaven, places where gods live, centers of the universe. That's the fact that it's glass really represents, that it's hard to ascend to those heights. To be enlightened, you just slide right back down into worldly sort of attached
yeah,
habits. It's very hard.
and it's also an expensive material, at least back in the
Mm,
day. So it's not every day. It's just it's
that's
not
true.
your regular mountain. It's I do definitely see a parallel with a glass mountain to the stuff being made of gold and silver and unusual material and quite frequently expensive material.
Yes, very much. I just sort of see as well um that it's interesting that she's had to become sort of humbled and become like the beast of burden, the horse, the faithful companion, to get over that mountain. She's had to crawl over it on her hands and knees. Desires. So she's attained some sort of maybe heights of metaphorical self awareness. Your cough just startled me. Oh, I jumped.
I'm sorry.
Um,
I was polite enough to mute it on the stream, but I didn't have time to mute on 2 places.
oh, well, yeah. But everything's still not quite as she wants it when she gets over that mountain. So I guess when you've ascended, you become detached. You know, there's kind of still suffering in the world. You're just better able